Good day, everybody. This is Dr. Bar 2 on Pill Talk Podcast, coming to you with your daily dose of medicine, something to give you some medicine to get you inspired and live at your full potential. I have a special guest today, Dr. Dan. He's a distinguished ER physician, a biodefense expert, war veteran, just to name a few. He's been on CBS, ABC, NBC, MSNBC, just to name a few. So it's an honor to have him here. So how you doing today, Dr. Dan?
I'm spectacular, man. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. I'm glad you could take some time out to come and be on Pill Talk today.
Definitely. We got to do stuff for our people and for the public and make sure that they get their good dose of medicine, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I want to jump right into it. You're a very accomplished gentleman, and you do so much for the community. So let's start in the beginning. How did you get your start into the medical field?
Yeah, that was interesting. Well, I guess around age 7, I knew I wanted to be a doctor. I kind of knew that early on. My parents were in the health sciences field. Mom's a nurse, dad was a microbiologist. I pretty much had no choice. My parents were also Nigerian, so it's pretty much you a lawyer, doctor, or accountant. Those were your three pods that you had to pick. So if you didn't pick any of those, you were pretty much outcast. Of course, that's changed nowadays. They've understood that there are many paths to success and to support those things. But I say that tongue in cheek. That's really how it was. But yeah, I knew that early on in my lifetime. Other parts about my profession and knowing and how I got to where I got to was my parents definitely. We grew up in a praying family, and there were morals and expectations and responsibilities, and it wasn't a single family. So that was one of the things, and definitely my mom was a strong advocate for making sure that we follow through on that. And my dad is more the laid back guy, but definitely mom wasn't having it. So we had to shape up. So those are the two pieces that have kept me going.
What's up, everyone? Let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Bartu Wilson, and I'm going to tell you my favorite motto: bigger dreams, less worries. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I can recall starting my journey to pursue my childhood dream to become a pharmacist. It wasn't an easy one. I had to overcome naysayers, rejection, self doubt, because I didn't get accepted to pharmacy school until my third time applying. I had a big dream, and I wouldn't allow anything to stop me from achieving it. I took every loss that came my way, and I took that loss and turned it into a lesson. During those times of rejection, I took the time to sit down and figure out what was I doing wrong and what would make me an ideal candidate for the next time I apply for pharmacy school. I achieved my dream job, and I'm featured on one of the most prestigious publications out, Marquise Who's Who, in 2021 as a top medical professional in the world, because I didn't allow my worries to stop me. So my words of wisdom to anyone listening out right now is, it's bigger dreams, less worries. So join me each and every week, Monday at 6 p.m. on Pill Talk Podcast to start to dream bigger. Pill Talk Podcast is not just your regular podcast, it's your medicine. The daily dose you need to educate, motivate, and inspire to live at your full potential. So, go ahead and start to dream bigger with Pill Talk Podcast. And while I got your attention, make sure you go to my YouTube channel, subscribe, and become a supporter by being an active listener. And if you would like, get you a t-shirt, bigger dreams, less work. Great, great, great. So you came in to become an ER physician. So can you describe what you do in the ER and how you're impacting people's lives with that, just in case someone doesn't know?
Sure. So ER as an emergency room, it typically actually is referred to as the ED, an emergency department, because it's not just one room, as we say in the emergency world. However, yeah, in my day-to-day work, it really involves saving lives, literally, and I'm blessed to have those opportunities. I like the adrenaline rush, the unknown, the thinking on your feet, the excitement from that, but also the ability to intervene, to help, and to change the course. And even more so, I love it when I'm in the pediatric emergency department because I get to see children and I get to shape their lives and try to rescue them from whatever perils that their parents have brought them in from. For the adult side, when I work with older patients, unfortunately, they're not as resilient as kids are. So my preference is the children, definitely children and adolescents. Um, and, but I still will see some adults. With that said, it's still the adrenaline rush, the unknown, the excitement from trying to save a life, be it from a seizure that a patient's presenting with, from a fever, to, for example, SARS-CoV-2, what we're seeing, unfortunately, to some trauma like a fracture, a broken leg or bone, somebody got in a car crash, many different ailments. And we have to, kind of fill in that gap as the doctor. We're not your primary care doctor, but we got to figure out everything quickly within a short period of time. We don't have your whole history. So there are lots of challenges to it, and we don't know your background. So we have to now get all that in a short period of time and quickly intervene to save a life. So that can be sometimes challenging.
Okay, great. And there you mentioned a little bit about COVID, how you guys had to make adjustments for that. Can you talk a little bit how COVID impacted the ER, and then now that we're getting out of COVID per se and getting back to some normalcy, how you guys are moving along with that?
Yeah, so it still provides some challenges from that perspective because it's not gone anywhere. It's just kind of uh, quiescent, if you will, for now, meaning it's low levels. People have been doing what they needed to do, and we were getting vaccinated. But now we're on the resurgence. It's coming back, not like it went anywhere, but we're seeing cases starting to rise. So that's the challenge. And the question is, you have the equation, you have the formula, are you plugging it in? Meaning, are we doing what we need to do? So if it's to get vaccinated and wear a mask and do what we need to do to avoid COVID and to actually make that kind of get to a significantly low level, we're not doing that, and I don't think we have that capability to do that, unfortunately. So yeah, we're starting to see some upticks in those cases. It's just what it is.
Understand that. So let's go off a little bit because it's something I really want to talk about that excited me about your background, about all the things that you've done. And one of the things, if you've worked with the Obama administration in the biodefense. So how did you come across that, and how were you selected as being one of the youngest African Americans to actually do that?
Yeah, I'm definitely blessed. You can't take away from that. I've definitely accomplished a lot of things that many of my peers would never accomplish in their life. So blessings to God on that. But yeah, so I guess it started from my work with the military. As a war veteran, I was an infantry guy, so a soldier. Yes, I was infantry. That's us carrying the weapons you saw in Iraq and going through neighborhoods and things like that. If you watch any of those types of movies, yeah, I did that. But I had a dual role, and I'll share that story at another date. But the dual role was infantry soldier and also doctor. So um, there's a special group that I was part of that I can't go into detail about. But anyway, so we had skills to save lives and to also eliminate any threats, right? So that's part of one of the processes. But in that, also, I had to take care of soldiers. I had to and civilians, and to be able to provide for them and protect them from any health ailments or health effects, but also from potential threats that could be chemical related, biological related, radiological, explosives, all of those, what we call CBRNE. that I had to make sure that we were capable of responding to. So these are things, the concrete examples are if it's a anthrax, or if it's something like a chemical, a blistering agent that was released, or something that was going to be a nerve agent that could cause immediate death and things like that. How do you train your soldiers? How do you prepare? What medications or what we call countermeasures would you give, and things like that. So those were all part of my job, and also figuring out what the threat is. So as I got into all that work, then fast forward, returned to the States, and started doing some work in emergency medicine, studying this and getting on advisory councils, just, giving them advice, because people didn't know about that in the States. Only people who have been at war and in the military and have special privilege and access had those trainings, and I was one of those. So enter, we had all the things from 9/11 and more terrorist threats and things like that. And then I got called up to, hey, can you advise us on this? Can you advise us on this? How would you go about this? And then the whole disaster world, which is what we also trained and prepared for, from heat casualties, injuries, pandemics, and weather changes, earthquakes, all the things you have to figure out what we call business continuity of operations for companies, corporations, or even for your hospital system. All those things you had to factor and think about. How do you surge up? Meaning, how do you have enough staff? How do you have enough supplies? There are 4 S's of surge. How do you have enough space? And other stuff that you're going to need. So those are the things that I had to become expert at and to give advice on. So I got called up, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the emergency associations, many different healthcare facilities, corporations would ask my input. So I was a consultant and advisor on those things, and published a lot of peer-reviewed journal articles, over 30 plus and 80 plus other mentions in public literature. So that's how I got into that. And then newspapers and media came and all those things, and TV. And then fast forward, I got called up by President Obama's Secretary of Health and the White House. And basically, I got appointed to the role to advise the whole nation, and the Secretary of Health and the Secretary of Preparedness, and directly the president on those types of things, with a group of us that were hand selected to advise on the preparing for and responding to public health emergencies. And that covers everything from Deepwater Horizon incident to H1N1 to whatever all those threats are to the nation and to the homeland. So that's how I got involved. And it's been pretty much the same thing, but different threats. And I've been involved in that. So yeah, that's it.
Man, that's great. Yeah. Like you said, that's something a lot of people won't be able to uh, step into or do that position. Um, if you don't mind speaking, can you speak about some of the challenges that you were faced with having that title or with being in that position?
Yeah, great question. Challenges were great, but being someone from a family of African descent, it wasn't an issue, right? Just you got to do, and you're a fighter. It's always been in you, so I never had that whole imposter syndrome that people seem to go through. I don't know that I felt entitled. I just felt blessed, and I'm going to do what I do best, and is pay attention to detail, give my 2 cents advice, think about things, and think about the public in general, and what would I do for myself, for my family, and extrapolate that to the public. Yeah, there were challenges. Hey, there's this black guy in the room. Who's this black guy? Who's this young black guy? And then it's just like, and there's, it's just you. So you have to represent. And, when they hear you speak and people hear you speak, they're kind of like, oh, okay. He knows what he's obviously talking about. Interesting and stuff. But, there were some stares and faces where, people kind of wonder, like, who are you? What are your qualifications? And, I'd be like, go check my resume. I don't know. I'm fortunate to be here, and I'm here, and I will add value. You can't deny that. So, and I was able to make some changes and be involved in a lot of public policy, congressional testimonies, a lot of wonderful things. But yeah, people fight that imposter syndrome. Fortunately, I never felt that way. I felt that I belonged there. I was obviously appointed there, but don't get it twisted. There are some times where you just kind of like, okay, you felt the burden, like you're speaking up for Black people all over the world. It's just like, okay, I want to make sure I represent well, and you shouldn't feel that way, but yeah, I think you do. You feel that pressure, but I was able to, fortunately, step up to the plate.
That's great. Seeing you got all this knowledge, all this credentials behind you. What made people came to you and had to respect your knowledge at that time? Like, you know what, I'm on my stuff. Believe what I'm saying because I did the research, I did the studying and everything like that. And with that, I have another question for you because you have such a vast knowledge of the medical field and everything else. I see that you were an assistant professor. Would you mind speaking about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I was in academic medicine for several years. I hit the ground running. Once I hit academia, I published several papers, was involved in multiple things. Some of the things I mentioned, I was doing a lot of things at the same time. And, sometimes that affects families because you're not spending that much time with family. So if there's anything, I'd see that as a teaching moment, balance your time. So academia can be fun and great because you basically are at a university health system and you're able to impart knowledge and also challenge yourself and be with peers who are super sharp, super smart, and iron sharpens iron. So you're able to do all those things and also impact lives and policy and all that in that work. But also it does consume your time and you work hard. And you may not see all of the rewards, at least monetarily, in the academic setting, but you definitely can see that with your publications, your work, and other ways that are satisfying. But also make sure you balance that time and remember your families and if you have kids and things like that. Make sure you spend those times because it does take away from that. So that would be one of my advices. But yes, so I was an assistant professor up for promotion, and after dealing with the challenges of academia, I decided I needed to go do my own thing. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, also, and an innovator and a thinker, and I always think outside the box. And while you follow rules, there's sometimes some rules don't always make sense, so you have to pave your own way, and then you go out on faith and you go do it. And that's what I've done. So I had to make my own way, and I haven't looked back since. So that's where I'm at. So it came to own my own business, created my own business, my own consulting, and still work in the emergency department, but as a contractor. So I don't have to be obligated to all the wins and the politics and BS that sometimes goes along with academia and racism, to be frank. So you just have to kind of pave your own way and figure out how to leverage your networks and all those things. So that's what I've done so far, and there's more to come and more opportunities. As long as it's doing good for the public, I'm all about that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I just want to say one thing. You're like the prime example of always keep learning, always keep achieving, keep pushing yourself forward. Because, like you said, you've been in academia, you're working in the ED, and then we want to talk a little bit about your entrepreneurship. Excuse me, and I'll talk a little bit about the organization or the business that you've started to consult with others. If you don't mind, let's jump into that a little bit.
Yeah. So Erudition LLC is the name of my company, and we do advising on public health issues as it relates to disaster preparedness, emergency management, emergency response, pandemics, of course, like SARS-CoV, any of the public health threats, public health issues, even media training along discussing public health issues and business continuity of operations. What does that mean in plain English? It means pretty much advising companies, organizations, people, entities on how to prepare for these types of threats and situations. How do we continue our business? How can we figure out a way to still reach our customers or reach our clients and engage them even while a pandemic or some public health threat is going on? How do we make sure we decrease our risk to our bottom line, to our finances, by making sure we're still being able to run our operations as best we can given a difficult circumstance? What are the crisis communications that go along with that? How do you distill information in a way where people can understand it? And how do you address the crisis in leadership? So all those things I advise on, and that's part of what my business does.
All right. And how long have you been in business for yourself with Extradition?
So Erudition has been out there since 2009. Kind of part-time, and then as I gained my wings, so to speak, and dealt with all the BS of academia, I said, you know what, all right, I'm going full-time and just, I'm gonna do fly. And sometimes you gotta walk out in faith and go get it. So that's kind of how I've done that. So it's been almost 2010, 9. So yeah, about pushing almost 10 years.
Man, that's great. That's great. Because that's one thing a lot of people don't know. Like, a lot of small businesses end within the first 1 or 2 years. And for you to be going this long, that means you're making a big impact. You're doing a lot of great things with the business. And then you can tell the sales or the consulting has picked up and kept it moving forward.
What's up, everybody? Let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Bartu Wilson. I'm a pharmacist that was featured in one of the most prestigious publications, Marquis Who's Who, in 2021 as a top medical professional of the world because of my impact through medication therapy management, outreach programs, and networking. I started my own podcast, Pill Talk Podcast, to sit down and talk with other top medical professionals about their journey. Some of the topics that we cover in our conversations are their career path choice, education level needed to practice in their career field, and most importantly, how they're impacting the lives of the patients that they see daily. So, I would like for you to join me every Monday at 6 p.m. as I release new episodes so you can learn about the different medical fields from the top professionals themselves. And just want to let you know that Pill Talk Podcast is just not a podcast, it's your medicine. The daily dose you need to educate, motivate, and inspire to live at your full potential. So become an empowered leader and start to dream bigger with Pill Talk Podcast. So I want you to go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel and support the podcast by becoming an active listener and purchasing some merchandise. Thank you.
We got one more thing that I want to talk to you about, because you said it in your business that you help people with media personality and doing media takes. Understanding you are a media personality yourself, that you go on these shows and be able to give this advice. How did you get into that?
Yeah, so one, I was definitely always candid. I was me, always blunt, and calling out what needs to be done. And of course, you have to have your own expertise in your field. But understand that, media also is looking for a certain type of people that fit their cookie cutter kind of definitions. I wasn't one of those, so it wasn't the easiest kind of thing. But give your message. They can't deny the truth in your knowledge. That's one of the things. So I think people respect that. So I've been on CNN, MSNBC, Cheddar, all the different outlets, so I get to say, Google me, how people like Google me, but I don't do that. But The point is that yeah, those things are out there. It is a double-edged sword because you're actually sharing a message, but it is your voice, and speak your voice and speak the truth, the best truth you know. It is an opinion. It's not the gospel, and you're engaging people who are listening. And I think you have to be engaging. You can't be boring. You can't, just be yourself. And hopefully you're excited and excitable and passionate about what it is, and people will listen. Make sure you're not speaking in jargon that they don't understand, and that's one of my big things about communication. I have another company we're working on all things communication and how we fight this misinformation, disinformation, which is called Health and Communications Agency. And we talk about that. I think they even do those discussions on Clubhouse and off Clubhouse and other outlets and Twitter and on my IG at Dr. NMD. So I think we have these conversations, but media can be a double-edged sword. They can be your enemy or they can be your friend. And you just have to make sure you give them the information that will make them not only friendly, but also that gets the message out to the people that you really want to. And remember, you control the voice. So you control what message you want to put out there.
Nice. That's some really great information right there, man. Being able to tailor your message to the audience that you're aiming to deliver or receive that message from you. That is a thing that a lot of media personalities need to understand. Because some people would just get on here and just say anything and it's genuine what they're saying and the information is correct, but they're not tailoring it for someone to actually receive the message. So it kind of just goes over a lot of people's head. Yeah. So you do a lot. You're making a great impact. So how do you have a work-life balance at this point?
Yeah, that's I've learned to improve with that. It has been a challenge. And as I said, you have to make sure you take time for self. So one, I think important is sleep. I'm still working on that department. The way you get enough rest. It's important to reduce aging and also just for your mental capacity and sharpness. I think the other piece is, just doing stuff that's fun and quality time with your family and loved ones. Nothing is guaranteed, as COVID has, kind of shown us. I think those are important things, and carve out your time for your work and just say, after this, I'm shutting down and doing something else. And it's practice. It takes some discipline, and you just have to keep doing that. Understand also that your time is valuable. People take for granted the time. I guard my time jealously nowadays, and also let them know your time is worth something. I think people take people for granted. I think they're just supposed to volunteer their time all the time, and especially in this day and age where it is important. There's nothing wrong with service and volunteering, but after a while, you also shouldn't be taken for granted. So make sure you value yourself and value your time, because you don't get that back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My last question for you today is what are your next 5 to 10 years look like? What are your next career goals and dreams?
Well, I would say as God wills. So I'm a firm believer in that, and He paves the way. But yeah, there's lots coming. The future is bright. Definitely some projects that I'm interested in and working on are the age of misinformation and disinformation, addressing that from a policy standpoint, a consultant, and advisory standpoint, especially for all these social media platforms that I have been the conduit for all this misinformation, disinformation, to help them regulate their policies around that and advise them on that, or even advise congressmen. I think those are my public health calling, to be able to figure that piece out. I think the other piece is, how do we figure out some treatments and therapies that will help people with different types of ailments, especially our children, to address some of those things that haven't been addressed, leveraging technology, AI, and health knowledge base. So that's coming. And I think the other is just the philanthropy part, which is where we're helping others who are less fortunate to get them to a different level, and meet people's needs as best as we can by either offering healthcare, free healthcare access, whatever it is to help get them to that next level, and just showing that human side. I think those are the pieces that I want to engage in and be on, and of course that does take capital. So we got to figure it out, make that solution, but to be able to invest in ourselves, in our people, in people in general, but definitely I think also the BIPOC population who have been neglected. I think that's important, and to be a part and be a voice in that, and a partaker and a doer. It's important to be doing, be a part of that process. So yeah, those are the things that I look forward to.
Nice. All right. So if anybody want to get in contact with you or be consulted by your business, can you give out your Instagram, social media handles, and websites so that they can be able to get in contact with you?
Sure. I'm at Doc Dan MD. That's at DOCDAN, M as in Mary, D as in Delta, on all pretty much channels, Twitter, IG, and my website is docdanmd.com. So try to keep it simple. So reach me out there and follow me, and we can exchange in some communication. I'm not your doctor. This is only for informational purposes only. But I do think there's some opportunities to collaborate. So we'll see.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Dan. I really appreciate you coming on, taking some time out to be on Pill Talk Podcast to give some daily dose of medicine to inspire the next generation of medical providers and entrepreneurs like yourself.
It's out there for the getting. Go get it.
Yes, sir. All right. This has been Pill Talk Podcast. Thank you.